Tappy Chat. It's Tappy Chat. Tappy Chat.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Tappy Chat. My name is Alex, and I'm back with another episode for you. So interesting one this week, and I really hope it's going to be quite beneficial to a lot of people. We have been largely focusing a lot in these podcasts about everything from birth onwards. You know, we're focused on raising, caring, and going mad over those little ones. But what we don't often, and what we've not looked at all in this podcast, is the journey to get to parenthood. And it's not always an easy one, and it is fraught sometimes, and yet we never really discuss it. So I'm going in there today because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to this, myself included. And I've struck upon a wonderful lady locally who hit me up for some sponsorship, and then I discovered what she did, and I feel like this is our savior. And I think she's going to be very helpful today, very insightful. So we are going to chat today to the gorgeous Karen. I'm going to attempt her surname and watch me go Deulofeu. Um, it's close but no cigar. Yeah. She is a fertility, pregnancy, postnatal coach. And God, if I even knew one of those existed, I would have been all over her. And what we really want to dive into is that really sometimes very tricky, very difficult journey into actually getting pregnant. So before we go there, hi, welcome, Karen. Thanks for coming on this journey. So lovely to meet you kind of face to face.
Sure. You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. Karen, why didn't you start, Karen? Tell us what you are, who you are, what you do. And yeah, let's get started at the very beginning.
Yeah, so I'm Karen. You pronounced my name perfectly. I thought it was fine. Well done. I'm the founder of a coaching practice called Liliama Coaching. I've been running for around 6 years now, and that all really came from my own experience of infertility, IVF, pregnancy, new motherhood, and the support that I had versus the support that I needed, really.
Yeah.
And really plugging that gap, and it just sprung from there. My background is in corporate. Many years ago I was a lawyer and went into project management, and so very much lived that kind of corporate alongside infertility IVF journey.
Yeah.
So many people are trying to navigate. And yeah, kind of found coaching, and it just made all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle fit in, and then on from there really, and created various different programs and support available for people.
Amazing. I mean, your tagline kind of jumps out. It's if you go to Karen's website, it's more than a baby, your life back, which is like quite a huge statement. What's that mean to you?
Well, I think when people are trying to conceive, the focus tends to be so much on getting pregnant, either for the people themselves, but also a lot of the support, to be honest, around. It's all focused on diet, the medical side, everything is tailored around getting pregnant. And the more we do that, the more we kind of lose ourselves in the process. Life gets put on hold. We stop making plans. We stop going on holidays. Social life is affected. Work is affected because the only thing we can think about is trying to get pregnant. So we lose our focus at work. We lose our sense of self because we just become this person, in inverted commas, who can't get pregnant. And there's just so much loss within that. So a huge part of it comes from my own journey, and addressing that, fixing that was really the massive turning point for me in my fertility journey. And that's really the foundation of all of my work. Yes, obviously getting pregnant is a huge part of it. Excuse me. But actually it's about more than that. It's about reclaiming control, your mindset, feeling better about yourself, being able to show up at work like you used to, being able to have those relationships, romantic, family, friends, all of these things, because all of that is so important when going through this. And actually, it really struck me a little while ago. A friend of a client managed to find me on Instagram, and sent me a message completely out of the blue and said, "Thank you so much. You've given me my friend back." It makes me emotional just thinking about it. Um, because that really is the impact
Yeah.
that not having this kind of support versus having it can have. It's not
Yeah.
just about getting pregnant.
And all the way through, like, just not even just the sort of the IVF journey, if that's the journey that you take, but, you're thrown straight into, either a loss or you're straight into motherhood and pregnancy, all of those different stages need support that is just not
For
there.
sure. And that really hit me was when my son was about 3-ish, and I've always been open with him about his journey and pregnancy and that kind of thing. And he once said something to me about me being pregnant. It was something along the lines of, "What was it like?" That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just got really emotional because I just felt like medically the pregnancy was perfect, but I just lived in fear throughout. And
Yeah.
did I enjoy it as much as I could have done? Yeah, physically I loved it, but emotionally, no, God, if I could have gone back and changed that, 100% I would have done it.
Yeah.
So it lives with you because the memory of getting pregnant and being pregnant, we don't just forget that.
Yeah. And even when you're successful and you have a baby in your arms, when's the time you're into the newborn phase to unpack all of that you've been
Exactly.
carrying for years potentially. It's a long old journey. Oh my goodness.
It is. And I think that going through the infertility journey, we're almost conditioned for thinking the bubble will burst.
Mm.
And that's the bit that a lot of people don't really understand when you're in that postnatal period. There's lots that is still happening and pregnancy as well. But that kind of sense of this could all end tomorrow
Yeah.
takes a long time to
Yeah.
change.
Mhm. So let's start at the very beginning. As we were saying, before we started recording, a lot of people kind of assume that getting pregnant is so straightforward, and for some it is. Some it's too easy, some friends you can see and they're having, 2, 3, 4 babies, but the fertility struggles no one really talks about. It's fascinating that, a lot of people are going through it, but even close friends of mine, I had no idea, for years until, they let slip that they'd had IVF, and then I was like, "Oh, so did I." I had no idea. It's why do you think that is that we hold it in and we keep it quite to ourselves?
I think there's still an element of shame
Mm.
associated with it, a shame of needing support to do
Mm.
something that, quote unquote, should be so natural.
Yeah.
And there's an element of what's wrong with me? My body's not working, that kind of thing. There's a lot of blame attached to it. Also, let's not forget it's not just female factor. Sometimes it's on the male side as well, which can be really difficult. And also, I think there's just such a huge misunderstanding with it, and sometimes you tell people about it, you tell people you're going through IVF and they think it's the golden bullet and they're almost like, "Oh my God, that's so exciting, amazing." But that's not really the reaction that you want either. And then or there's the expectation about it, or that it's so tangled together that I think a lot of people do just keep quiet about it. But I've been amazed since doing this work. You can imagine I just tell everybody. People ask me what I do. I'm very open about it. I'm very open about my journey. Every single person I've spoken to has said either they've been directly affected or somebody really close to them, like a best friend, sister, somebody like that. It's never a friend of a friend of a friend. It's
Mm.
always somebody who's really close.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's a shame that we don't talk more openly about it.
Yeah, because
Hopefully
yeah,
that's
it can strike at any time, for me, it was secondary, so I had one baby and then couldn't understand why I couldn't have a second one, and I didn't even know that was a thing that existed, and then therefore, family and friends won't understand because in their heads, "Well, you've had one, you're fine. There's nothing," it's just time. But that's surprisingly common.
100%. And in fact, I find a lot of people in that secondary infertility space, it can be really hard. I don't know if you found the same,
Mm.
that it's almost like you fall into a bit of a gap because you're not neatly in that kind of infertility space because you have one and you feel like you should be grateful and there's
Exactly.
almost that kind of thing. But then you don't neatly fit into people who are growing their families and having more children and all of that. So it's a
Mm.
really hard space to be in that people just don't understand, as you say.
Yes. And there's definitely little support because you can't turn to your doctor, you can't turn to because you have a child, therefore you're stuck in this kind of no man's land of where you're going to go and how you're going to pursue
Yeah.
that. Do you find a lot of people, what's the biggest kind of emotional challenge they face when they meet you and they're starting their journey? At what point do you often meet people? Is it the beginning of the journey or some way along when they're hitting their first major challenge?
It can be all sorts, to be honest. Sometimes it's at the beginning, sometimes it's after a loss, sometimes it's later when pregnant. Um, Quite often it's people that feel like they've tried everything, and then they come to me, which is,
Mm,
I mean, I don't want them to have not worked with other things, but it's kind of nice to then see the shift in them when that happens, that
yeah.
they kind of almost don't expect it to happen, almost a little bit cynical at the start. But overall, I think it's almost as people with a sense of feeling like they're not in control,
Yeah.
feeling like they're not in control of the process, and their mind, to a certain extent, they're just riddled with the overwhelm and the stress, and the doctors are saying, just de-stress, just relax.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just so hard. And they often feel like it is impacting different areas of their life. And they just don't know where else to turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see people individually or as a couple? Obviously there must be sort of struggles within friendships and relationships when you're going through this.
Yeah, primarily it's the female as a one-to-one, and sometimes it is with a couple, sometimes it's with people who are supporting people going through it. So it can be a real mixture. But primarily, yeah, it tends to be the lady who's going through it.
Yeah.
Who's
Biologically, there's a lot of stress on your plate, you're the one that's turning up to a lot of those appointments and
exactly.
going through the losses, which I don't think, like you said, you assume it's a golden bullet and there you go, it's going to be successful and you start on this journey and you've invested mentally in this and physically, financially, you're invested in this end product, but it's not that transactional, and what was the biggest shock for me was hitting that first loss and then going, oh, this is huge.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And normally, when the person's got to that IVF place, if they're doing IVF, there's already been years of trying to conceive, already been years of waiting month on month, and that roller coaster that happens each month. Um, so there's already that kind of background even before starting IVF.
My goodness. God, how do you even start to unpick this? It's a lot, isn't it? Because it's still ongoing and everyone's kind of like fighting their way through so much medical advice and so much emotional kind of adjustment. What does I suppose what I'm what I'm trying to navigate through is what does support actually look like? How can you look after yourself and look other people when they're starting and going through their fertility journey? How can you help?
So what I do in terms of the main way that I tend to support people is through a program that I have, and it has a little bit of a past, present, and future kind of piece to it. But I think this can apply whether somebody works for me or more generally themselves as well.
Yeah.
The past bit is almost that acknowledge what's happened so far, not in the sense of sitting in a corner and just crying about it for hours, but actually giving yourself that space of, okay, almost like drawing a timeline kind of
Yeah.
thing can really help. Of this is where I've got to so far, but where I got to so far definitely does not, for the most part, dictate the end point.
Yeah.
So recognizing where they've got to, and then, okay, where am I right now? What's happening right now? What do we know right now? How do I want to experience this next stage that I'm in? And although we might not be in control, in inverted commas, of getting pregnant and when, we want to reframe that control in terms of how we're experiencing this. What's mindset, nervous system, all of those, the ripple effect, I call it, all of the other things around you, work, socializing, all of those things. How do I want all of those to look like right now? What do I want my internal narrative? What to say? What do I want to feel about myself right now? And how can we get to that point, which will only help all of the other things as well, the fertility side of things as well. And then there's that future pacing of, okay, what is next? What could be next? When it's the right time to get there. But we don't necessarily want to be looking to the future when we're in that present bit. We want to be aware of it and recognize what those options might be, but actually be really present with where are we now? What do we know now? Without carrying so much from the past into now.
Yeah. And so much anxiety that you project onto the future. It's
Yeah. Because, I mean, even on that point, not to simplify it by any means, but if somebody is doing IVF, that generally speaking, the IVF clinics are really quite harsh on who they will take on.
Mm.
And so often we can start it thinking it's not going to work because of what's happened before. Well, we wouldn't be doing IVF if we know for sure it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And this is where people get a bit stuck in then they want to try and be positive. But that doesn't help either because we have the backstory that tells us that's not always the case. But being able to be in this kind of middle ground of being comfortable, being in control, feeling more regulated, knowing where we are, all those other elements of life feeling right,
Mm.
then that's the foundation to really start to move forward better.
Yeah. It is about control, and it's interesting because I felt very out of control with the doctors in a way because I didn't understand enough about it. I didn't have a medical degree. I didn't really know enough about the process. They might have been telling me at times, but it wasn't really sinking in. So you feel very much like you're being swept along, and different doctors saying different things, and it it feels very much like you just turn up and do what they say, but not being in control of it, not having that knowledge and power to ask the right questions and
Yes.
to feel like you're allowed to, and take control of your own journey. I found I was very sort of, I don't know, very middle class about the whole thing. It was like, right, okay, he says don't do that, don't do that. She says do that, I'll do that. And never going, well, actually, is there a particular reason why this doesn't happen? Or can I ask you what to do next?
Yeah.
It's um
And that piece about being told what to do and what not to do,
yeah,
that's kind of what leads us to losing trust in ourselves
yeah,
and losing trust in our body. And if people say, do this, don't do this, and it still doesn't work,
yeah.
then we feel even worse about ourselves because we're almost led to believe that if we do those things, it all should work. So therefore, if it doesn't work, there must be something wrong with us.
Yes.
Which,
It's actually become really kind of like you can deep dive into an absolute cycle. I mean, I didn't know there was someone like you out there in support. So, you go to the internet, don't you? That's the next place you go to fire yourself up with information. And then you're like, oh, wow, okay, I'll join a million groups about it, some in America, some here. And they're telling me to do like eat French fries at this time in the morning, keep your feet warm and, and some this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh my God. Maybe I didn't eat chips at 9 a.m. and therefore it's not stuck, or haven't I? And you can just wind yourself into and you think, I used to be a rational person. I used to apply science to things, and now I'm running around like an absolute loon because, I can't sneeze. I can't do anything.
because we're all just grasping at anything that will make this thing that should work easily
Yeah.
to work. And I remember you're making me smile because I remember when I was going through it, reading that you should keep your ankles warm as orange is good luck. So I managed to find these long socks that I had. I chopped the toes off so they were like 80s leg warmer things.
Same.
And I found these little tiny studs that I had that I didn't even really like, but they had some orange in them. It was the only orange thing I had. So I wore these studs religiously, I think up to like quite far into pregnancy, just in case.
Just in case. Just in case. Yeah, I used to, my husband, bless him, I drove him mad, but he bought me these like heated pads to put around my feet. And I would like, even slightly chilly, I'm like, panic, cold feet, must warm them up, must warm them up. It was
Yeah.
absolutely awful. Absolutely. I mean, I'm amazed that we're we made it through and navigated that journey because it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
I laugh about the silly things now because I can look back, but um, it doesn't just stop at even that. Though I didn't enjoy a pregnancy at all. I enjoyed my first one. I couldn't enjoy my second one because I was highly anxious the whole time that it was all going to go wrong. Even at 30 weeks, all the way through, because you've experienced such a fight and you've invested so much, but it's all on you, which doesn't help because then, up goes your blood pressure and it's just not useful at all. But
That happens to so many of us, and I think it's something that's just not talked about as well. I think people almost feel a little bit ashamed that they feel like that. I mean, on that point, I remember this was back when I was pregnant when Mothercare was around. If you remember Mothercare, you could
yeah,
go all your stuff on Mothercare. And I went heavily pregnant right towards the end and literally bought everything. And as I was paying, I said to the person, if he doesn't make it, can I bring it all back and get a refund? Because to me, it was a realistic, genuine question. And she looked at me like, what on earth's wrong with you? Like, I was super heavily pregnant, past 30 weeks.
yeah,
But it was something that was so real to me. And I was like, well, of course. And I kept all the receipts just in case.
yeah, yeah,
It just stays with you unless you address it, but it doesn't have to stay with you. That's the other important point with all of this. I think
yeah,
a lot of people expect life to be hard when you're trying to conceive and pregnancy to be full of anxiety. And, there's even a term for it now, right? There's scanxiety, I think it's people say, where you just live scan to scan. And we expect that to be the norm, but I'm raising the flag of it doesn't have to be like that.
yeah.
It really doesn't have to be like that.
How did you navigate through it? So your journey.
So it was very similar to that because I didn't know any different. But before my IVF cycle that did work, I realized how much I just didn't believe in my body anymore.
Mm,
One of the cycles when I first went into it, I really went into the whole be positive thing.
mm,
And I imagined the baby. I gave the baby a name. It was going to be a girl. I visualized playing with this baby to the point where even now I can still remember. I can be in that visualization of playing with that baby. Um, that didn't work, and I was completely a mess because to me it was so real. But within that, I realized that I had been able to imagine the baby, but I couldn't imagine getting pregnant. I couldn't imagine being pregnant. I'd lost faith that my body could get pregnant. And it was always like this baby, yes, it was mine, but it was just a baby kind of thing.
yeah.
When I realized that, I started doing some work on myself, used EFT, which I now use as part of my coaching,
Mm,
about rebuilding trust in my body and all of those kind of things. And I think, obviously, I don't know for sure what helped, but I think that had a huge impact.
mm,
And that's had a huge impact going forward. And yeah, a bit like what you said, if I really feel if I'd have had this support that I'm offering now back then, it would have been hugely different. A different pregnancy. I wouldn't have had that conversation in Mothercare, I'm sure. Um, and also the first few months of postnatally
yes,
as well would have been different.
yes. That's what I was so expecting that, when you've had one and then you're going back to do it again, you're like, right, this time I'm not a new mum. I'm going to soak up every inch of this like newborn phase and love every second of it. But then you throw in this whole complication of what a battle it has been, and you're straight back to square one, but worse than before because you're trying to navigate all that you've been to get there, navigate having a new baby. And, I had a 3-year-old running around as well. So there was no time to unpack any of that. Um, and the transition is hard because I think when you've had no issues, like with my first, I could visualize it. I could visualize being a mum, visualize, that whole kind of phase, but I couldn't with the second one. I couldn't
That's
visualize
interesting.
any of it. It's amazing that you were able to kind of project that, but I just couldn't see myself there, even when it was blatantly obvious. I remember someone saying, "You are going to have," I was at 38 weeks, like, "You are having a baby. You do realize that?" Because I wasn't slowing down with work. I wasn't stopping. It was like I wasn't going to acknowledge it because that might jinx it. I wasn't going
Yeah.
to put myself on maternity. I was going to work right up because, you know, who am I to say what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. All of those things, so many people go through that, and I don't know if you've felt it as well, but a lot of people feel that the big emotions that come up with the new baby, there's almost an element of, guilt for the difficult emotions, and when we feel frustrated, and we feel tired, and we feel all of these things about being a mum to your second child, or that there's almost an element of, "How dare I feel like this when I worked so hard to
Exactly. Yeah,
have
this is the
them?"
hardest one. I fought for you.
Yeah, I fought for you, and that there's almost a weird element of I made I oh, I don't even know how to describe this. Almost like I forced you into the world rather than it was your choice. I sometimes got that kind of, uh, feeling. It's
Yeah.
so weird to describe, but definitely an element of, yeah, kind of.
I made science to make you happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I found it a little harder um, to connect in a way because,
Yeah.
there's always that issue when you have a baby and you do skin to skin, but there was, he was also a C-section. So I just found that it took longer to find a connection with him. It was almost like a stranger for a
Yeah.
while because I don't know, it was like you're looking at it from somewhere else. And because I've made him, there was a little bit of ownership of I'm not your mum. It took me a long time to kind of own it and go, no, this is still my child. I've grown him. But yeah, I couldn't make that connection for a long time. So I think I love the fact that you're going all the way from fertility to pregnancy to postnatal because I definitely find the IVF process stops dead.
Yep.
You have that first scan and then you're dismissed. I was like, well, I never come back. Yeah, no, you never come
Yep.
back. We're
Yep.
done with you. And I was like, no, there's a lot of work still to be done post then, particularly in that sort of newborn phase. But I found personally it took a lot longer to find that oxytocin, to find that connection, to find that bond that wasn't there with my first. At first, it was just there. I was just buzzing. The second, I was like, "What have I made? What have I done? Who is this?"
Okay. For sure, and I think that kind of sentiment can come out much later as well. I mean, I've
Mm.
had people I've supported whose children are much older, who are still struggling with how they got here and what's happening and managing it with that kind of legacy feeling that they've been carrying for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh. How long postnatal do you support people, or is just at any point along their parenting journey?
So I've got a lady whose son is 4 now. It's odd, a lot of the postnatal people oddly tend to come to me when their child is about 18 months. It's almost seems to be a point when they expect it to be easier, and it's more and then they come.
That mythical point, I'm still waiting for that. Yeah.
So it can be really varied, really varied. If anything, I think almost it can be that very first few months when people expect to need the support. They don't necessarily come at that stage, I guess, because they're still in the kind of
Yeah.
crises with everything. It's almost a bit later when things were settled.
Mm.
But I think, interestingly as well, that's also the point when people think they should be coping better.
Yeah.
So and it's still the same, whether it comes from infertility or just a general kind of
Yeah.
postnatal experience, it's often very similar, nervous system, how control, the thought process, managing that, managing emotions, all of those things that I support my ladies with.
Yeah.
It is for anything, really.
Well, it just adds, doesn't it? Because, you can add what type of birth it was and all these things you can hold on to for quite a long time, almost like not a trauma, but it can pop back up like PTSD at odd moments. And you're just like, do you know what? I never really excised that. I never really kind of just got it out of my system because it feels selfish or a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah, and especially because of course, I do the fertility through to postnatal, but actually what I do with people is almost more general, but it's tailored to those specific areas. But it can apply for work and socializing and all those different things. In fact, my son's recently diagnosed with being neurodivergent, and a lot of the coaching I do on him, I teach him as well, and it's made huge impact for him as well. So it really is transferable. I've got ladies who tell me that they're coaching their partners, husbands. They've said something that we've said in session to their partner. It's made a difference to them. So it's all about teaching and explaining ways to think, process, mindset, nervous system, management of all of those things, being in control of all of those things in various different phases of life.
Yeah. And having someone that, I don't know, I think it would have been beneficial, like someone who is not related to me, who's not, a
Right.
close friend, just someone that is completely sort of a stranger to familiar to the process, but a stranger to your own personal life. I think you can feel like you're in more of a safe space. So it is hard, particularly postnatally, because family descend and then it becomes impossible to be yourself anyway because everyone is there. Do you find that, I mean, we were saying that it's largely women that will seek you out because, we're proactively kind of hunting down this path. But do you ever get approached more by fathers or other partners that are struggling with it as well, or is it secondary? Do you find that it's the mum that's taking the counselling, and then, like you said, secondarily counselling their other halves on the side?
Yeah, it tends to
Yeah.
be a little bit. I think there's still a bit of stigma around the male side
Mm.
getting the support. Hopefully it's changing. I interestingly, I think even coaching would be so beneficial for the guys because it is so proactive and
Yeah.
not to be stereotypical, but you don't have to just sit and talk. That's not what it is. It is more proactive for them. So yeah, hopefully it's changing more. I think it's starting to. There's starting to be more kind of groups that are popping up that are supporting the guys. Um, but I think it tends to be a bit more almost informal rather
Yeah.
than, okay, this is what we're gonna learn and talk about today. They're chatting about football and then weave something else in.
Yeah. Well, it's even harder, isn't it? I mean, we talk about how there's a massive sort of stigma over it and people don't talk about it. But certainly friends of mine that I've spoken to about it who've been through it, you know, she will talk openly about it. He does not like her talking about it, and he won't, because, it's seen as a failure or a failure on his part or a failure on their part that's not to be spoken about. And I think it's quite hard for men to be able to deal with that, and support a partner who's going through it.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a shame. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, Karen, it's amazing that you're out there. How do people find you if they're at any point in this journey? It doesn't have to be at the very beginning, as you said. It's wherever you are. If this is resonating with someone right now, um, firstly, if someone's listening, what would you say to them? And if they're feeling just overwhelmed at the minute, and secondly, how can they find you?
So what would I say to them? This is a stage. This is a phase. There is support out there. There are ways that this can be different. We don't have to, we can accept how it is and we can stay in it. And sometimes that's okay. That's what we need at the time, but it doesn't have to be like that. And having that courage to recognize what you want it to be versus what
Mm.
it is huge, and belief that it can be different for you as well. Um, and where to find me? Was that the other question?
Yes,
If I missed a
absolutely.
question.
Everyone needs some Karen in their lives, I feel.
Uh, my website is Lily Amma Coaching, Lilyama Coaching. Take a look on there. You've got a bit of my backstory. You can also book a free initial call, which I'm super happy to have with people if they'd like to just reach out. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn. Can be found there.
Yeah, courage is a big thing, isn't it? It's a big part of it. Even
Yeah.
even having the courage to potentially just stop the journey because that is the right thing for you. I think it's really hard to kind of just be able to look at your, and decide what's right for you, what is the right path to pursue. So
And certainly at that point, getting that support is huge. Not expecting yourself to be able to manage it alone.
yeah.
No, we don't have to be like that in this. Getting the support isn't a failure. If anything, you get where you want to be quicker and
Can you get your life back, which is
get
incredible.
your life back. Yeah, wherever.
Please do reach out to Karen. It's been fabulous, but not when she's up a mountain, which might happen very soon. How I initially made contact with Karen is this bonkers woman is doing 3 peaks in 24 hours. Just not just for the jollies, but raising money for an incredible supportive charity. What do
Yeah.
Fertility do?
Fertility Action are absolutely incredible. They really support people going through different stages of their fertility journey. There's lots of community work happening there, bringing people together. I'm actually a facilitator for one of their evening calls. They have various different calls that you can join for different stages of infertility and beyond to meet other people. It's incredible. Some of my clients who don't realise I'm associated with Fertility Action talk about how great it is.
Oh wow.
The founder, Katie, is doing incredible work in the space as well, working on policy change, this postcode lottery that happens with IVF, which is just awful, working on that. Lots of different things, generally raising awareness and giving needed support to people. So, yes, Katie is wonderful. However, she did come to me back in February and said that there's this challenge happening. She promised a silly outfit, which is always the way to get me.
Amazing.
Sadly, the silly outfit isn't happening, but apparently I am still climbing. I was telling myself it's just 3 peaks, it's just really big hills. As a friend pointed out, no, it's not just hills. They are, in fact, 3 mountains, and one of them on Sunday had snow on it.
Wow.
Yes, my face was similar to yours. Heat wave down here, snow on the top.
No on the top. Amazing, but
Bonkers,
how appropriate to liken a fertility journey to climbing a mountain.
Absolutely.
It's a struggle, but how are you going to do it, Karen? You're just going to plot where you are at any particular moment, put your crampons in, and keep climbing.
One step in front of the other.
So yeah, please do. If you're tracking down and following Karen on Instagram, please do, and give her some sponsorship money because it is an incredible charity. And if you're looking for further support, do look them up as well. Karen, thank you for coming on and getting to grips with a really, really tricky subject. And I mean, we could talk for hours because there's so much to it. But I hope if it's resonated with anyone listening, do reach out to either one of us. Any questions or further support, I'm more than happy to forward on to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too for asking me.
I hope the walk goes well, and I wish you, right now, to be honest, I'd be quite happy to roll around in some snow on the top of a mountain because it is like 90 degrees.
Bring some back for you.
Yes, please do. Oh, thank you, Karen. And
Thank you.
And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Please like and subscribe to my mum's podcast.